All right, sorry we got cut off at the last one. We are now starting the third video for Lecture 8, so it would be Lecture 8C. We don't have too much left of this lecture about New Testament backgrounds, but we had just talked about the two different groups, very different groups, the Herodians and the Zealots. And I didn't get to mention that even though Zealots were anti-Roman, not all of them were incredibly violent. They tended to yes, think about revolt quite often, and they did participate in revolt. But you do have some zealots who actually leave and become disciples of Jesus. One that we know of, Simon the Zealot, became one of Jesus's disciples. And we also know a little bit about Barabbas, who was a zealot leader. He was arrested, and when it was time for Jesus to come to trial, Pilate, the governor in charge, was trying to release somebody out of his custody in order to kind of placate the Jewish people around the time of Passover. And so he said, should I give you Jesus or should I give you Barabbas? And if you know the story, the Jewish people said, give us Barabbas, crucify Jesus. And so this zealot leader, who probably was an insurrectionist, maybe even a murderer, was let go while Jesus was flogged and then crucified. So it just kind of gives you a glimpse into what some of the zealot leaders were up to at the time of Jesus. So we've talked about the Jewish background, and it's also very important to look at the Greco-Roman culture and religion. So Greco-Roman meaning the Hellenistic culture, the Greek culture, and then the newer Roman culture that affected the Mediterranean world, in order for us to understand and read the New Testament better. So I have a video here. Oddly enough, it's a making of video, making of the HBO series Rome, which is now like 10 or 15 years old. But it's so well done. The historical consultant on this film just did his homework and knew his Roman background. And so this video talks about Roman religion. There's a little bit of violence in here. I just want to warn you. And so if that bothers you, you don't have to watch it. But I'm going to hope that this is going to be loud enough for you all to hear.
At this period, the world of Rome was a pagan world, a pre-Christian world, so there was a very strong moral code, but it was a complete reversal of our own. They were a completely different kind of animal. On the one hand, you have this incredibly civilized, sophisticated society that built these amazing, extraordinary buildings, a very sophisticated system of religion, of gods and goddesses and order, and then on the other hand, were just brutally murderous.
This is not a robbery. I'll give you a moment. If there are gods you'd like to speak to.
Religion is everywhere in Rome. It's part of everything you do, from the moment you get up in the morning to the moment you go to bed at night. But religion has nothing to do with morality. Religion is there to protect the state.
The gods have abandoned Rome. If Mars was watching, he would not allow such a disgrace.
It's not there to make you good or bad. It's functional.
To the Romans, the gods were everywhere, so when creating these characters in this world, we and the actors had to be aware of the immediate presence of the god.
So you're constantly seeing the candles burning in the corner of the atrium, lighting up the masks of the ancestors. But you'll also see the small flame burning on the shrines of the household gods. And you'll see Niobe in her insula, making sure that she shares a small part of the meal she's just had with the god or goddess. So in everyday ways, it's just constantly there.
I offer this feast to you.
You swear on Jupiter's stone?
I swear on Jupiter's stone.
I do not like to quarrel with fortune, and clearly she's taken you for a pet.
Thank you, Apollo.
You vowed to Persephone. You vowed you would hold your peace.
But in more spectacular ways, we've also tried to build in some examples of religious ritual that will probably be more surprising to an audience that don't necessarily know much about that Roman world.
I do things that nowadays would be construed as
evil. But there were different times, and the alternative for not getting on and not advancing would be to die. So I'm going to use whatever I can to keep the survival of my children.
Proper little soldier.
He's scared.
Nonsense. Just sad to be leaving his mama. You're not scared, are you, Octave?
When Atia goes to pray for the safety and the deliverance of her son, who's missing in Gaul, and she goes to take part in a pretty extraordinary rite. They're called the cult of Cybele, the Great Mother. It was a cult brought from the Eastern Mediterranean. And it involves a sacrifice, large amounts of blood, a dead bull, several castrated priests, a lot of flagellation.
It was completely horrific because I hadn't quite bargained on the amount of blood. And it was my carry moment, actually. I quite enjoyed it.
Great Mother says no harm shall come to your boy.
Good.
So there's a nice combination. You've got something that's vivid and extraordinary, but at the same time, real. You come away from it not thinking, oh, well, they just made it up. It might as well have happened, on Mars. No, it didn't. It happened in Rome. It really happened.
The best drama is not about playing, didn't they wash differently, or didn't they eat funny food? It's about human relationships, and human relationships never change.
Not one loving word. To me or his daughters. I was lonely. For 8 years I wept.
Niobe, she goes and prays wordlessly to the Bona Dea, to the good goddess. She's represented by this enormously large woman who sits naked and body painted, receiving offerings on the behalf of the good goddess. But she's also associated with those sorts of desires for, where am I going to? What sense does my life make? Can I be forgiven for things?
Religion was hugely important. It wasn't a monotheistic culture. Highly superstitious people.
It was a beautiful depiction of the way in which popular religion may have worked in the busy streets of Rome at that time. Much more exotic and strange and unexpected and slightly bizarre than the Rome that we've been given all these years. But Rome is also quite familiar. The basic human emotions, the ways they relate, the things that they care about, I think those are pretty constant.
To Venus, the birth giver, I make this sacrifice. Let her love me as I love her. Venus realizes his wife doesn't love him anymore, and he wants her to, so he goes to the specific god that is for that task.
I give my blood to make it so.
Also, he sacrifices a pig for every man he has killed in battle. He's killed over hundreds of men in battle. But it can't be cheap for the guy.
You make an offering for every man you kill. The priests offer a discount when you pass 100.
Priests. Crooks, many of them. I just talk direct to whatever god I'm doing business with. Bugger the priests.
He's an optimistic fatalist, and we are in the hands of the gods. He has, of occasion, will spread bets across the gods. He'll pick which ones he should be talking to that day, which one's possibly more useful than the other, which one he might need. So he'll be a couple of chickens here, a couple of doves there, maybe a goat here, because that's the big bet.
You be the right god for the business here. I call on you to help me. If you would open this door, then I will kill for you a fine white lamb, or failing that, if I couldn't get a good one at a decent price, then 6 pigeons. This fortress I vow to live.
Legionary Titus Pullo, stand up.
He also has this innate faith that he's exactly where he's supposed to be. And that everything will be all right. The gods will see him right.
Look here, Mars. I am Titus Pullo. These bloody men my gift to you.
The moral code of the Romans was not based on some higher morality. It was based on their status as citizens of Rome.
The Roman state thinks it has to propitiate, it has to get the favor of these great gods and goddesses, and then they will not punish the Roman state. That's why they employ real professionals. This is what priests were, who could get through the ritual word perfect every time, who knew exactly what to do at each moment, because that, they believed, is what would guarantee the favor of the god.
You've entered the city under arms. I must warn you that seldom augurs well.
The gods know my intentions are peaceful. The people must know it also.
So be it. Auguries will be taken. Let the birds fly where they may.
Most Romans still retained at some place inside themselves a feeling that you needed to consult certain kinds of what they called augury or auspice before you did something important. to find out whether the gods approved of it.
Perhaps she would accept some money.
There's an idea. 100,000 sestertii, say?
Oh, that's very kind of you.
Far and away the most important god, the one to keep on side, was Jupiter. He was called Jupiter Optimus Maximus, the biggest and the best.
Great Jupiter, graciously give us clear signs within the bounds I have traced.
So it's more like a political thing than a spiritual thing.
Okay. We're going to stop there. There's a little bit more, but I want us to be able to finish in time. Hopefully you were able to catch the words on there. Like some of the captions were wrong.